Located on 225 acres in Garden City, Long Island, Nassau Community College, a member of the State University of New York system, has close to 20,000 students attend the school each year. The college mascot is Leo the Lion, and these are his stories of the school's absolute best and brightest who have graduated over the past 50 plus years. So let's catch up together as the Alumni Association of Nassau Community College proudly presents Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Welcome to Lion Tales. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and I am a director on the board of the Alumni Association at Nassau Community College and a proud graduate. I am here to celebrate the successes of our alumni, and together we will share stories that will uplift, inspire, and often amuse you. Each week, I will introduce you to the alumni of Nassau Community College interested in sharing their experiences while attending the college and the secrets to their success. Look for many new and exciting events on the Alumni Association social media pages and share any exciting news with us on Facebook, Instagram, or on our webpage at ncc.edu/alumni, or find me on Twitter at Dr. Lynnda Nadien. Did you know Leo the Lion is the mascot for Nassau Community College? Lions are ruled by Leo and fire. The male lions represent pride while the female stands for teamwork. Together we are Lion Tales. Today I would like to welcome to Lion Tales Jenny Hernandez, class of 1996. Jenny Alicia Hernandez was born in El Salvador and arrived in the U.S. in 1992. She is married with two sons, aged 9 and 11. Loving animals, she has a beagle, an African gray parrot, an aquatic turtle, and a betta fish. Jenny is an ENL, English as a Native Language teacher, and received her associate's degree at Nassau Community College, a bachelor's degree in communications and journalism from Queens College, and a master's in education from Hofstra University. Her hobbies include traveling, reading, dancing, and listening to music. Jenny's interests are national parks, museums, and historical points of interest, and hidden natural gems. Welcome to Lion Tales, Jenny Hernandez.
And thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us about your experiences just arriving to America, and how did that transpire? What was your early education like prior to coming?
Well, I had just finished my high school in El Salvador, and when I came here, I actually was with the idea of going to college, but I just didn't know what I was going to study or where. Yeah. And so the first thing was to go and learn English. And at that time, I went to a place called Encar Place. It was the boss's place to go and learn English. And I did it for a year. And then after that, somebody said, oh, why don't you try Nassau Community College? And I came and I got the information for the application. I still wasn't sure because, again, I just had arrived and I had to think about the money, the financing of the studies, and I wasn't working just yet. Or if I was working, I started at a job here at a building that is across from the Nassau Coliseum.
Yeah.
And it was cleaning offices. I was like, I don't make enough money to go someplace. And they say, oh, don't worry, because, Nassau Community College is affordable. You can actually apply and this and that. So I came, I presented the admission test, and then they noticed that I still have to take classes to improve my English. And what usually takes 2 years, it turned to be 3 years, but I could actually be my whole life here at Nassau because I liked it. It was pretty amazing to be able to meet people from different backgrounds, different countries, and that were in the same boat like me, like learning English, adapting to the new culture, and just trying to make sense of what it was like to be living in New York and in Long Island.
Yeah. And what was it like sort of the first day on campus? Do you remember coming, once you're in and you're here and it's that first day, what was that like?
Well, I used to go to, I think it was Bradley Hall where I used to have my English classes.
Oh, yeah, Bradley Hall. I think I had a few over there, definitely.
Yeah, and so I remember coming on a fall, like cold afternoon or morning, and being surrounded by a lot of trees and a lot of people walking back and forth, and you sometimes don't have enough time to go from place to place, so you definitely have to pace yourself to make it on time. So that was another thing, like the adaptation to keeping the time,
getting organized. I think as a student, because I think for anyone, once you decide that, you're getting ready to go away to college or moving into any type of community college setting, and even if it's close, it's still the commute.
Yes.
And then you get out.
And I'm sorry, in my case, I didn't have a car, so I have to be working on time management because of knowing buses, and then I got a job again, babysitting to a family in Garden City. There were times that I was walking from one place to another, from Nassau, I used to walk to Garden City. It wasn't so bad, if it was done at a certain time. Sometimes I had to walk from here to my job in those buildings. As I said, it used to be back then, it was the EAB Plaza, which was a European bank.
Yeah, that was across the street from the Coliseum.
And then it turned into, I think it was Citibank, and now I don't even know what the name is of the bank. REX or something.
Yeah. So what were some of your favorite courses at the beginning? Did you choose to take certain ones, or you just followed kind of the outline for each semester?
I followed the outline. It was mostly, I was mostly guided by my teachers who would tell me, this is the courses that you need in order to graduate. And obviously at one point I had the dream of becoming a journalist. It all came up from the time when I was in El Salvador, and some war correspondents were covering the situation in my town. And I met this person that was from another country, taking pictures and asking questions. And I say, what do you do? What are you doing here? Some people want to get out of here. Yeah. But here you are. And then he's like, well, people need to know what's happening. And I'm one of those persons. And I was like, oh, I like that. I like to be asking questions. And, maybe that would be something that I would like to pursue or, and do. And I decided that I wanted to follow on communication. So I took some classes, and I remember that the ones that had to do with communication were the ones that I enjoyed the most. The writing, not so much, because it was challenging for me as I was learning the language.
And I think with writing, a lot of it is just there's a lot of practice.
Right.
When we were learning Spanish, we were asked to somehow translate into our writing, but I don't think it was ever really as good. And some of the paragraphs would kind of be in the reverse of the language spoken. Right. And so I always felt that I could read it well, but I can write it not that well. Yeah,
to express it in a written form in the way that is acceptable for the people that are natives, you're required to follow a certain format. And that's a format that is not universal. So when we write a paragraph in El Salvador or in another country, Latin American countries, it might be that, you just continue to flow and the way it goes. But here it is like you have certain methods, certain format that you have to follow, and that takes time, takes practice. You are not born knowing this.
No, and even with young children, when they come into school and they're just beginning to formulate sentences and being conscious of the vocabulary and how they're going to use all of that, that's something that's like an evolution. It takes forever for even just an English speaking student to be able to do. Yeah. So what are some of the professors that inspired you being here on campus?
I will say one of the professors that I enjoy was my sociology teacher, and I think he was Silverman. And I don't think that he's alive anymore, but he just made it so interesting, funny. I don't think anybody was ever absent to his class because he just made it engaging and coming with so many anecdotes and so many side stories that were related to the topic, but that just included more. And just made it more exciting and more,
Yeah, and there's always that. I had sociology here. I think it was with Professor Wise, and he was that type of a teacher too. Like you just wanted to go to the class. And he didn't really say a lot, but when he was up there, he sort of commanded the audience, and he got everyone to speak where they probably were very afraid to speak, and talking about, different ideal systems and things that go on in society where, it was pretty hot hot topics,
Yeah.
but he made it comfortable for everyone.
Right. And what I liked about and I appreciated from this teacher was that he made me feel comfortable, even though that he knew that I wasn't comfortable with the language, because there was still the language barrier. I came in 92 and 93, 94 is when I was taking these classes, and I didn't have a total handle of the language yet.
Yeah, and that's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so now you don't realize how much time has gone on.
Yeah.
And now that you're at this, highest level of an educational realm, like you went from an associate's all the way through to the bachelor's. Did you have that in your mind too, that, okay, I'm getting the associates, I'm getting the bachelor's, I'm just going to keep going to get the master's? And
I didn't think about the master's yet, but I did think about the bachelor's degree. And I actually did my research, and I knew that it will have to be part of the SUNY system.
Yes.
So Queens College was my choice, even though the commute was a little bit hard.
yeah, it's very hard. They say Queens College is the Harvard of CUNY. It's very, very exciting. You are listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and our guest today is Jenny Hernandez, class of 1996 and a proud graduate. You had mentioned prior that you did keep in close contact with people that you met here.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about those
Well,
relationships?
I had to tell you, even coming here right now, it makes me think about how, just like with the expression of just when you think you're out, you're pulled back in.
Yeah, the Godfather.
Once I graduated from Queens College, I came, I got a job as a reporter, actually. And I went out east to work for the East Hampton Star for a certain period of time. It didn't work out, especially because you need a good handle of the written part of the language. And at that point, I was doing a decent job interviewing, getting the material, but the writing might have been still lacking. And so I got fired. And so when I got fired, obviously I was depressed. And I felt, oh my God, I have gone, because it wasn't easy for me to go to college. I had to work, cleaning offices.
Yeah.
And then babysitting, and I was hassling with the bosses and all of that. Then I got a car, here and there, but it was still hard.
It's a whole struggle to get to that point.
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, oh my God, here I am. I spent a lot of money. I sacrificed a lot, and you're back to kind of zero somewhere. And so at one point I came back to Nassau to visit a dear teacher, the one that actually interviewed me for the admission test, Leonard Durso. Mm-hmm. And he was in charge of, at that time, of the English Language Center at that moment. And he was starting a new program, and he said, I remember that when you were a student here, because I did, you tutor, because of the a requirement for one of the classes, you were tutoring some students that were like you, learning English, and you did a good job. Would you be interested in being an assistant teacher in this program? And I say, well, yeah. Because at that point, I was looking for where to situate myself. And so what ended up happening was I was given the opportunity to help other teachers, but then one teacher couldn't do it. Couldn't make it to one of his commitments with one class, and he's like, this is a beginning class. I think that you can do it. And I'm like, I don't even have an education background. I don't think I can. And I was like, and he actually trusted in me. And I appreciate that, and I'm thankful. And so I taught the class. I had a ball. I had really a good experience. And then after that, he just trusted me to have more classes. And then I even became part of supervising people that were organizing activities for the students that were learning English as part of this program. And after that, he actually asked me, why don't you go for your master's in education? Because I think that you're doing a good job. And I'm like, you know what? I will. And so I was working full-time during the weekend, Saturday and Sunday here, in order to go to Hofstra for classes in the evenings. And there were times when I was I was working for free because it was part of the practice, part of the observation hours, and all of that.
I noticed too that with ENL, or it was English as a second language.
Yes.
Probably when you were getting your certificate.
Now it's as a new language because many of the students that come in already speak two languages, so it's not a second language for them. That's why they change the terminology for it.
And I think it's so important too, because I do notice that a lot of my students, when they're younger, they're still speaking full Spanish, and they're very good at it.
Right.
But by the time they get to be in 5th or 6th grade, they somehow either stop speaking their language, not really to their friends. I'm sure in the home they're still speaking, but then they kind of lose it a little bit. And then you want to get it back because you want them to be excited that they have that, because it's a gift. It's an amazing thing to have the two languages.
Well, I went through the process of that too, because what happened is at one point the pressure is you have to learn the language, which is English, is the key, is the one that is going to open doors, is the one that is going to give you a job, is the one that is going to keep you, fed.
Yes.
And so you kind of put aside your home language. But then once I became a teacher, and then I was hired into a district that has the need for me to teach, and especially at a middle school, I had to teach them at the beginning. It was like math, science, social studies, and English.
It's a lot.
And it's a lot. And so the main subjects, if you teach them in English, they don't understand it. So I have to mediate it through the first language. So I went back to using the language I knew.
Yeah.
It was just something, so it felt so rewarding to be of service and to be doing something that I knew the process of learning also. And I knew all the challenges that you face as you're learning a new language and as you're getting adapted to a new culture and all the things that are going around you. And especially I understand my students, because when I came here, I was 18 and I had been separated from my mom and my brother for a while because they came in here first.
Yeah.
And so it was an adjustment process. So I can see the same thing happening with my students, because sometimes their parents come here first and then they come alone afterwards. And so there's a gap, or there's again getting used to living with a mom or a dad, or for the parents also, they probably have in their minds that that little kid that they left, but now is a teenager and they don't know. They had to adjust on how to handle that situation.
What is your opinion on the way in which the state has made these changes in these ENL programs? Because we have bilingual programs, ENL, dual language, and I think that a lot of times, even as educators, we don't really understand. If we're a general ed teacher, we might not understand what an ENL teacher is actually doing with the students. What do you think works best for?
I think all of them have a place to work with different people. Like, for example, if somebody who just got here from another country goes into a mainstream class, it will get lost.
Yeah.
It will not get the information. It's not going to be able to, if it is in a high school, there's no way that they are going to pass the regions. And if it is at the middle school, also the same thing. You don't get to comprehend all the material that is being offered to you, presented to you, because of the barrier of the language. So there are some students who, at one point, they have already made so much progress that they are ENL students only because they still have certain things to work. Most of the time, as I know by experience, the one that takes the longest is the reading and the writing part, because vocabulary doesn't come so easy.
Right.
With the mainstream or the native born students, they have been learning the language from birth, is per se. Like as babies, they are exposed to language, but then these kids they have only been exposed to the language for 1 year, 2 years, whatever the time it is. So for the ones that are new, the bilingual works especially at the middle school and the high school level, because they have so many assessments that they have to take, and so they need to get the material in a language that they understand.
Yeah. Do you find that using one of the things we would do is building the vocabulary, having them using the dictionaries, the glossaries,
Yes.
and preparing, prior to the assessment. Because when you look at the Nicetel and the Niceslat, those are difficult assessments.
Right.
And it kind of boxes a child in, because even if they're ready to do, maybe they're doing exceptionally well 4th or 5th grade, but then they take the Niceslat and they still didn't pass.
Yes.
They're not commanding.
That's right.
And so I think that, I know in some of the school districts, Central Islip is an example, the principal noticed that a lot of her students that were excelling could not pass that Niceslat. They just couldn't get out of it.
Sometimes it has to do with the format of the test, but other times it's also because there are certain students who feel that I'm already past this, so I'm not taking it seriously.
That could be too.
And I think it's a combination of all of that.
Yeah.
There are certain items in the test that, yes, it required for us to kind of give a guidance to the students saying, this is what is expected of you. You have to answer this way. Not that you're going to prep them and this is the question that they're going to ask. No,
Right.
This is the kind of items that are going to be done, and this is how you're expected to answer. But you need some prompting.
You were listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien, and our guest today is Jenny Hernandez, class of 1996, and a proud graduate. And so overall, when you're dealing with, what grade level do you have right now?
7th and 8th graders.
7th and 8th grade. And so what is their response to your instruction and keeping them engaged? Because now a lot of the students they're really kind of looking at social media, and they have a lot of influences besides their teachers
Right.
that reflect what they might be or how they might speak. And how do you deal with that in the classroom?
I actually like to share a lot about my experiences with them, from the good to the bad, everything. The experience that my brother had here, my mom had, the ones that I had with my family, and my own experiences. What is been more challenging to me, and the things that have worked for me. For example, I know that when I came here, we didn't have to deal with all the social media.
Right.
So I try to tell them, and I actually make it a rule in my classroom where they put their cell phones away. And I don't want them to be involved with that within the time that they are there. So I am more like a strict teacher.
Yes.
And I like to, kind of instill in them discipline for whatever they need to do. Because in order to achieve something, whether it is progress in acquiring the language, acquisition of language, of a new language takes time, and you need to invest that time. You need to put effort in it.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight. Now, there are different fun ways now, because I remember when I was here, I used to listen to, my mom used to have a long play, like player or stereo at the house, and there were the records. And you have in the back of the jackets where you put the records.
The liner notes, everything's there.
Yeah, all the lyrics are there. So
Yeah.
I used to play the music, and I used to read it. And whenever I didn't understand certain words, I will actually look it up. And that's how I actually, amplify my language. I actually increase it that way. But now I tell them, you have so many ways to do it now, because there are apps that you can look into. There are YouTube University that you can see different classes. If you don't like the teacher, well, you cannot change the teacher that you have at school, but then you can actually figure out other ways. You have to also be more self-sufficient and more looking into what works for you.
Yeah, and now a big part of an educator's plate is going to be diversity, inclusion, and equity. And when we see that across the state, what are some of your opinions on how school districts can handle really understanding diversity and equity and inclusion, not just having, cultural arts night, like a very isolated night, or, one night where we do international night and we do these festivals, but how could it become sort of more global? Because, obviously on Long Island, there's a lot of segregation and school districts are so segregated. But I think we sort of owe it to the students to make them realize it's not just an isolated night.
Right.
We want to share in language and culture and the beauty of all of that.
Yeah.
And you've traveled, all over as well. And so how would we sort of make students think, wait a minute, well, you could travel and learn about this. What do you think about keeping that in the back of a child's mind, understanding cultures and keeping things a little bit more equitable, when they are now living in the United States today?
Again, sharing, making part of the, like when we have gone through different national parks, I actually make one of the projects from my classes to do research and present. And when they gathered information and came and presented, they found it very interesting. And obviously, once I showed them pictures of like me being there, they couldn't believe it. And I said, this is something that you can do. That, here you have open opportunities. You want to do it. And then I show them videos of like, there are some people who are traveling the country by bike. Or there are some people that are traveling by train. Or some people are actually walking,
Yeah, my brother-in-law's on the hike. He's been on the hike now since, February 1st, I think.
Wow.
And he's done it before. But he's there. I mean, we don't know exactly what he's doing, but when he does contact, but it's just an amazing experience to feel that and be learning through that type of method.
And that's what I am enjoying more, because I actually had to take more classes after my master's degree. I went to get a certification in social studies and then an additional one to prove that I was a bilingual teacher.
Oh, yes.
More and more. And so what happened is I ended up taking so many courses, but most of my focus now is social studies, and I enjoy it because then I have so many ways to tell them or expose them to the idea that the country has so many different kind of geographies, and you have so many people all over. And don't think that New York is just the way that everywhere in the United States is going to be. Right. Not everybody is going to be that way.
I mean, it's very different. Even if you drive 50 miles toward Connecticut, it's a very different vibe.
Right.
So it's something that I think we have to think about too. Now, in the areas of recommending colleges and universities to students that are 7th and 8th grade, you want them to start thinking about it now?
I always tell them that just like I did, you can start, with a community college. And there have been a couple of my former students who actually came here to Nassau. And then obviously I said, community college could be the Suffolk Community College, or could be a Nassau Community College. But that's how you can start. You can try to get a sense of what it will be like to be a college student, the kind of changes that you have to make, the kind of sacrifices that you have to make,
Absolutely.
The kind of things that you can afford. And,
And I think what's reasonable too, a lot of students, you watch some of the TikTok videos and they're applying to all the schools and then they don't get in, or they do get in and then they have to figure out, how am I going to pay for all this? And, it's sort of like a never-ending money pit in just generally.
Yes.
And, you want to do what's best, and saving for the kids when they're little. Like, as much as I thought that was like, I'll save. I remember, not opening up that 529 plan for my son until he was like 12. But I should have done it when he really was like 2 or 3, then he would have had that little extra. But, again, I think those opportunities, the more we talk about it, my parents didn't really talk about going to college. So the fact that I made it that far was unusual because no one else had really done it. Because at the time, only like men went to school, and, my mother didn't go because they didn't say that women could go.
Yeah. In my case, my mom only finished 6th grade. So, yeah.
So
I couldn't get the guidance. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I would like to thank our guest, Jenny Hernandez, class of 1996. How can our listeners contact you? Is that something you would want, or via email, or?
It will be hernandezjenny@gmail.com.
I would like to thank you for being our guest today. My name is Dr. Lynnda Nadien. I serve as a director on the board of the Nassau Community College Alumni Association, and I'm a proud alum. Lion Tales is available as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. More information is online at nccradio.org. Thanks for listening to Lion Tales on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.